Welcome back to SwitchCorner. Today we're going to be taking a look at Cyber Shadow for the Nintendo Switch. This one, it's the latest release from Yacht Club Games. This time they're on publishing duties, but can it maintain the quality they are now known for, and is it worth the add to your library? Well, hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family and let's get started. So Cyber Shadow, it's telling the story of a place known as Mekacity. It's been overtaken by an army of synthetic life forms, and it's been in better shape, that is for sure. You know, think like apocalyptic event and you get the idea. Now as Shadow, a lone ninja, you must get to the bottom of this mysterious enemy while also uncovering the offense that led to this devastating moment. Along the way then also expect to be learning more about Shadow themselves as well as their clan's history. It's deeper than I expected, honestly, and I really like the fact there's optional story in game thanks to bodies and terminals that can be investigated. So let's get the obvious out of the way first. It's absolutely influenced by NES era Ninja Gaiden, and who can blame Mechanical Head Studios, the one-man dev team behind this. It's one of the best games of all time. The first thing I want to say though, thanks to its influences, it is brutally challenging in points in both the platforming and the combat. Never unfair, everything is achievable, but I will say just expect to be dying and retrying a whole lot. This was expected. What I didn't expect though was the way it added its own stamp to things. So yes, you're a sword wielding badass ninja, and starting the game up, things are very simplistic. You can jump and slash, that really is it. 2 buttons, B and Y. The influence here, it's real, and the devs acknowledge this in interview, but I didn't expect the 2-button restriction outside of a sprint that actually does become accessible later in the game to one of the triggers. That all said though, these controls, they quickly evolve and you'll start to notice almost a hint of Metroidvania thanks to some permanent upgrades that you do gradually unlock. There's actually 7 in total, and they will not only help you in battle but help you in traversal too, so you know, unlocking that next chapter in the story, that next location. With these upgrades though, think shuriken flying stars, the ability to walkling, a downward attack mid-air, which also doubles as a way to bounce on items and objects without ever touching the ground. You can even parry incoming enemy fire. These specials all implemented by a press of the attack button with a direction, so think up and Y to throw your shuriken. Weirdly for controls, there's no duck here. There's moments actually where I feel like it would have been extremely useful, but it just kind of became in the end part of the challenge. These special attacks, they all come at the cost though of the special meter you'll find in the top left corner of the screen. The idea here though, simple enough. Navigate through 11 chapters, defeat a whole host of enemies along the way, and then beat an end boss. Progress of course then to the next chapter. These levels though often contain mid-level bosses, and I will say they're a lot longer than I went in expecting. The levels here though don't just think running left to right and vice versa, but there's a whole lot of like vertical based levels as well, a whole host of secrets contained within them as well, thanks to that dose of Metroidvania. That means some very minor backtracking at just a couple of points, but that all said, these are not connected levels and they are self-contained locations for each chapter. Throughout the levels then of course expect to be finding the all-important checkpoints. These not only save your progress, but they allow you to actually regenerate your health and even add power-ups, but at a cost. The power-ups, they rotate without any real choice involved, so you do kind of get what you are given. These could be things like turrets that follow you to maybe an extra layer of defense. These checkpoints though, they have handy little arrows that inform you of the direction to go. It takes a few ideas from Metroidvanias, but this reinforces it has absolutely no intention of being one, making sure the action comes thick and fast with no delays. I didn't once get lost or confused on where I was heading. So the cost for these power-ups, the health regen that I mentioned, it's an in-game currency, so think red gems. You'll find them scattered around the environments, in chests, by enemies, the usual locations. You can see your current balance, so top left corner under the HP and SP. It's attempting to add a layer of strategy to proceedings, and it very nearly worked. Around the halfway mark, I was out of gems. I was facing a particularly challenging gauntlet of enemies, spikes, all manner of things that wanted to take my life. I thought I was screwed, honestly. That was when I realized when you change screens, it respawns not only the enemies except for bosses, but also all these red gems and chests along with them. I then spent 5 minutes, I farmed some gems and never had to worry about it again. It's an interesting layer, a strategy that I didn't see coming, but sadly this exploit basically makes the entire system obsolete. I think they need to make it so they don't regenerate unless you die if they want it to be a genuine system that the player needs to think about. Along these red gems then expect to find blue ones that regen the special meter and red pills for health. Finally, on the positive side of things, as I said, just a huge cast of enemies, and they are fantastic, from typical drones to those that mirror you, to flying turrets, to dog-like creatures that run, jump, cling to the ceiling. They prove to be honestly the bane of my life. The AI here, it's not overly smart, but again, that is expected. This is a game of understanding patterns and then exploiting them, while the game's kind of basically trying to just overwhelm you. The boss is then particularly impressive, just huge in scale, and each one completely different to the last. All of them just designed though to quickly crush you. So that's the good out of the way. Let's talk negatives. And I have a few I do want to share. That said, I want to make it clear I wouldn't consider most of these, to be major issues. First, the checkpoints, so few and far between at points, and the placement is a little off. For example, you beat a boss, you've hit a checkpoint right before. You'd expect one immediately after, but that next one, in fact, might be let's say 5 minutes away. If you die then before hitting, that next checkpoint, the boss doesn't respawn, but you still need to traverse through the now empty location where the boss once was. Kind of felt like unnecessary travel time. Then the controls, the general base moveset and combat, I just love. It's solid, and the platforming absolutely fine-tuned, so it's just responsive and pinpoint accurate. That is, until they start to pile on more and more moves, while sticking to the confines of just 2 buttons. The whole pusher direction along with attack idea is sound, but so often I would set off the wrong thing, absolutely unintentionally. I appreciate the dedication to that NES Ninja Gaiden style, but I think they should have used all those lovely buttons and triggers that we have at our disposal. There is controller mapping in here also, but it doesn't include these specials unfortunately, so there's no way around it. By far the most painstakingly annoying thing though, the downward strike. 95% of the time it was fine, but occasionally it would ask you to bounce across a group of enemies avoiding, let's say, deadly spikes or something else equally deadly below you. It tries to mirror the messenger and even Shovel Knight in these moments, but the 2-button combo input, the down and the attack button, it just doesn't feel quite responsive enough to deliver, misreading my inputs when they were so frequent. Fortunately, there's not too many of these moments to face, but I will say they definitely did start to get on my nerves. So overall for gameplay, my feelings towards this one, it's best described as I had a blast, and 95% of the time it works, but there is that 5% of minor frustration that's mostly stemmed from its ambitions to be more than simply a retro throwback. When things work though, when you're wall-clinging, you're sprinting, you're dashing, you're taking down enemies, you're throwing that shuriken, it feels fantastic. And that high level of challenge just leads to high reward, and few games honestly nowadays can match this old school feeling. So graphically stunning, the pixel work here is very much modern in the level of detail they've achieved. Each level is varied while suiting a natural progression, and the desired cyberpunk tone, from city streets to facilities to factory-like locations to those that are simply more alien, absolutely keep variety at the forefront. There's always something happening, whether that's in the background, the enemies moving about, their individual animations, or of course, traps from spikes to laser beams to turrets. Then the cutscenes for story, again stunning, another throwback to Ninja Gaiden with the big black bars at the top and the bottom of the screen. There's minimal animation here, they just look really good. They capture that epic nature of the quest ahead of us. Also, I gotta say, they're kind of also hitting on the nostalgia as well, and that definitely worked for me. The only real graphical issues, identifying red gems and health pickups both being red, was kind of a bit awkward at points, especially when they were obscured from your view slightly, and then a few levels it all blended together a little bit too much, and I will say I had some minor difficulty identifying what I can stand on and what was going to kill me. Overall though, visually really impressed, no detail has been left out, and Mekacity, it's just an absolute joy to explore. Audio finally, and it's minimal. We get the retro-like attack sounds, jumps, the occasional enemy sounds, think boss tones, all that good stuff. but the real winner in audio, what elevates this one, it's got to be Pentadrangle's work on the soundtrack, which I hope I'm pronouncing right. The tone just goes all over the place, but there's always that consistent theme of, heavy digital synth with a hint of almost metal. It's just awesome, and I hope this gets a final pressing, or at least, it gets added to Spotify, because this is one I want to listen outside of the game. So overall, Cyber Shadow is not what I expected. At the beginning of the game, it absolutely is a Ninja Gaiden clone, something I've wanted for the longest of time. Simplistic controls that, put against increasingly challenging level design and enemies. They're just designed to overwhelm you. Intelligent AI doesn't really exist here, and that's absolutely fine. It's more a straight line right at you, which I promise you is terrifying. It's just completely intimidating. Then though, the game surprised me. It evolved behind an NES throwback with new movesets and that hint of Metroidvania with specials and even a currency system. These ambitions though, I will say, they do lead this game to what I would call Cyber Shadow's few weaknesses, but the ambition I really do appreciate to be more than simply a copy of one of the greatest games of all time. Cyber Shadow, it didn't disappoint basically, but it does have moments of frustration that will feel out of your control, and that's a dangerous place to be at times when the difficulty is already so high. I will absolutely be going back though. I had a blast, and now there's some remaining achievements, they're known as feats within the game, that I absolutely need to beat. With that then, today I'm going to be giving Cyber Shadow a great 8 out of 10, and I hope this gets a sequel because it's just absolutely deserved. A one-man team creating this is seriously impressive, and it could be the start of an incredible series. With that then, a shout out to the patrons of the channel who are just going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. Helps more than you know, so thank you all so much. If you do want to check that out for yourself, I have linked it in the video description down below. Then hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.